J. Sheridan Le Fanu brought a haunted Irish Gothic attitude to the dawning realm of horror fiction in 1872 with a short novel called Carmilla, a provocative forerunner of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and itself a bold elaboration upon themes explored as early as 1819 in John Polidori's The Vampire, not to mention an interim piece of lurid sensationalism from 1845 called Varney the Vampire. Now, the vampire, or incubus, a blood-sucking revenant, had proliferated in superstitious folklore since the ages of primitive humankind. It took such playful intellects as Le Fanu and Stoker and their precursors to whip the myth into dramatic shape and create an image with the power to scare rather than to terrify one's tribespeople out of their wits. I have in mind the good kind of scare, entertaining and suspenseful, with an ominous beginning, a suspenseful midsection with a jolting payoff, and a reassuring resolution. This is the invigorating thrill of classic horror fiction, a good rousing workout for the imagination. Not to suggest that raw superstition requires wits or even intellect. A scare without the grounding of entertainment value serves only to control one's subjects into a state of compliance or obedience. The narrator's disbelief can cause his listeners to suspend their disbelief just long enough to allow a bracing shock. Disbelief is the quality that protects the listener from a myth of terror. Oftentimes, the teller of myths believes as much in his stock or crock of fables as he wants his listeners to believe. That conform or croak mentality that has enslaved civilizations since before the dawn of history.
It was my will.
This is Mike Price speaking, author of the Forgotten Horrors books, and I'm here to rediscover a matched set of Le Fanu adaptations from Hammer Films, the Karnstein Trilogy, and a close-kin spin-off called Countess Dracula. All arrived within a compact 2 years, and all served to reassert a mastery of the Gothic style for Hammer, which was nonetheless entering a prolonged period of general decline. The Karnstein Trilogy was notorious in its day on account of screenwriter Tudor Gates' emphasis upon elements of lesbianism.
Giles, he's always creeping around trying to catch us with no clothes on. Did you find anyone?
No.
All three films concern the corrupted nobility of an Austrian family named Karnstein. In brief, The Vampire Lovers stars Polish actress Ingrid Pitt as Countess Mircalla Karnstein, a takeoff upon Sheridan Le Fanu's novel Carmilla.
Perhaps.
Mircalla is a rearrangement of Carmilla, an alias for the Countess. Lust for a Vampire features Danish actress Jette Stensgaard as Mircalla's descendant, Carmilla, who cuts a path of seduction and murder through a fashionable school for young women. Twins of Evil backtracks to a period before the initial film, featuring Damien Thomas as Mircalla's descendant, Count Karnstein. Mircalla herself, now played by German actress Katja Wyeth, appears briefly.
We walk the earth, but we exist only in hell.
The story concerns look-alike sisters Maria and Freda Gellhorn, Mary Collinson and Madeline Collinson, one socially acceptable, the other predisposed to rebellion and vampirism. A fourth such film, announced here as The Vampire Virgins and there as The Vampire Hunters, never passed the conceptual stage. Outside the formal trilogy falls the compatible Countess Dracula, which takes its backhanded inspiration from a Hungarian aristocrat of the 16th century, Elizabeth Bathory, who stood accused of draining the blood of dozens of young peasant women, something about a formula for unnatural vigor, if not downright immortality. Jeremy Pohl's screenplay furthers the erotic thrust of the parallel trilogy and Ingrid Pitt makes a formidable Countess Bathory. It bears noting that Hammer's Karnstein vampires possess survival skills quite different from those of Hammer's Dracula pictures. These creatures seem immune to sunlight and fire, and seem adept at transferring their spirits between bodies. Hammer would retain some of these variations in a 1972 Tangent picture called Vampire Circus. And herewith, the Karnstein Trilogy.
Come with us if you dare, into a twilight world of unspeakable horror.
You must die. Everybody must die.
Sample, if you dare, the deadly passion of the vampire lovers.
Directed by Roy Ward Baker, The Vampire Lovers begins with an attack by a ghostly woman, who in turn falls prey to the vengeful brother, Douglas Wilmer, of a prior victim. The frame shifts to a generation or so later, joining the aristocratic General Spielsdorf, Peter Cushing, and his niece, Laura Spielsdorf. A Countess, Dawn Adams, presents her daughter, Marcilla Ingrid Pitt.
May I present my daughter, Marcilla?
Hardly giving away too much to note that Marcilla is an anagram of Carmilla is an anagram of Millarca. By whatever name, the guest displays an erotic attraction to the general's niece.
How beautiful you are.
Now you're just teasing me.
Who soon suffers a fatal onslaught of nightmares and anemia. Marcilla vanishes, and Spielsdorf seeks out Baron Joachim Hartog, Douglas Wilmer, an authority on such like.
I was determined to avenge the death of my sister. I knew where these monsters sprang from.
Carmilla puts the moves on the daughter, Madeline Smith, of a neighbor and begins a systematic campaign of blood draining within the village. Hartog, the equivalent of a Van Helsing character, reveals the 16th century origins of the Karnstein clan, now extinct except for Carmilla. Forced into a retreat, Carmilla finds her ancestral castle staked out, you should pardon the expression, by her stalkers. Peter Cushing does the honors with a ceremonial head chopping. Evocative touches along the way include a spectral transformation for Carmilla's portrait, along with a cryptic cloaked figure, John Forbes Robertson, who observes from a cynical distance. The pairing of Hammer with American International Pictures sought to exploit a loosening of censorship in keeping with the more tolerant entertainment codes of France and Italy. Preemptive discouragements from the British Board of Film Censors were squelched with the self-evident truth that lesbianism was integral to Le Fanu's original story, an overriding literary pedigree. American International bankrolled the production with $400,000, assuring a surplus by way of Roy Ward Baker's brisk and efficient handling. Moray Grant's brooding cinematography captures a persuasive old-world atmosphere, and Harry Robinson's orchestral score seems rightly of the period. Ingrid Pitt proves her worthiness throughout as a counterpart to Christopher Lee's sustained prominence as the ideal Hammer-style Dracula.
Beware. Beware the cold caress, the kiss that kills. Beware the vampire lovers.
Now bereft of its literary pedigree as a direct adaptation, Lust for a Vampire found itself obligated to tone down the censor bait element of erotica. To adapt a historic novel is one thing. To use its characters anew is quite another. Jimmy Sangster, a mainstay of Hammer since the 1950s, directs this one with a bold ferocity reminiscent of the studio's glory days.
If the very thought of vampires makes your flesh creep.
We call them the undead, sir. They're vampires.
If you think all vampires are ugly creatures of the night, then you're in for a shattering surprise.
Though annoyed by orders from management to camp things up a bit, Sangster approached the project as if channeling the consummate Hammer director, Terence Fisher. The principal such annoyance here is the imposition of a theme song, Strange Love, that provides a jarring anachronism. The promotional campaign promised greater concentrations of erotica than the film itself could deliver.
O Lord of Darkness, Prince of Hell, hear this, thy servant's plea.
2 generations after the events of The Vampire Lovers, Count Karnstein, Mike Raven, resurrects his vampiric daughter, Carmilla, Jutta Stensgaard. A novelist, Richard Lestrange, Michael Johnson, visits the Forbidden Castle in search of supernatural lore. He finds himself attracted to a student named Mircalla. One must beware of those bass-ackward spellings.
Your education seems to have been neglected.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. You'll just have to have some personal tuition.
Lestrange becomes certain that the Karnstein legend has a basis in fact. Infiltrating a finishing school for young women, Lestrange becomes a pawn of the disguised Carmilla. As the indignant villagers arise in protest of a plague of murder, Carmilla is impaled in the collapse of the castle. Lestrange has a narrow escape, and the elder Karnsteins seem safe from the conflagration. David Muir's workmanlike cinematography combines with Harry Robinson's musical score to create a persuasive illusion of period. Jutta Stensgaard radiates an Ingrid Pitt-like vibe, though without the lively intensity of Pitt's original Carmilla. Ralph Bates fares well as a scholar who finds himself morbidly attracted.
The villagers have the most extraordinary stories about Mircalla. Meet me here tonight, it's important. I've found something out. You must come.
Tudor Gates' screenplay lacks a persuasive heroic presence to counterbalance the menace, and the result is a prevailing air of cynicism.
They look alike. They dress alike. 2 identical beauties. But one of them has the very devil in her.
For you, all pleasures should be supreme.
These are the men they call the Brotherhood.
Seek out the devil worshippers! By burning them!
Brothers, let us pray.
Peter Cushing, so crucial to Hammer's basis in the Dracula mythology, returns to the Karnstein series in an entirely different role. As a fanatical Puritan engaged in the extermination of witches, Cushing presides over a household occupied by the title characters, near-identical sisters played by the twins Madeline and Mary Collinson. Their credentials had amounted strictly to an ogler bait appearance in Playboy magazine, although both would prove capable of conveying the contrasting qualities of innocence and defiant wickedness.
They're all in bed now. No one will notice. And don't lie awake waiting for me. And don't worry. I shan't be long.
Hammer dubbed in voices for the sisters, achieving a more appropriate sense of time and place. The director, John Huff, trades generously upon Cushing's show of malice as Gustav Weil, who proves an unwelcoming host when his orphaned nieces, Maria and Frida Gellhorn, submit to his conditional protection. Both resent the uncle's sternness, and Frida develops a fascination with an aristocratic neighbor, Count Karnstein, who seems to relish his unsavory reputation.
What do you see? We are the undead.
Damian Thomas excels here as a figure of arrogant privilege, protected as he is by his noble rank from Gustav Weil's hoodlums and determined to resurrect his ancestors' vampiric customs. The Count summons Mircalla, or Carmilla, Karnstein from the grave with a blood sacrifice, a dreamlike and ectoplasmic sequence. She rewards the courtesy by transforming him to a supernatural fiend. Katja Wyeth takes up the role of Mircalla, who serves as more a catalyst than a key presence. Ingrid Pitt had rejected an offer to resume the role. Frida succumbs to the Count's influence, but she demands that her innocent sister continue to cover her secret life as a nocturnal predator. An underlying streak of decency finds Frida struggling to protect Maria from the curse. Maria becomes infatuated with a schoolteacher, Anton Hofer, David Warbeck, who had appeared attracted to the wild-at-heart Frida. Frida, exposed as a vampire, is jailed to await execution. Count Karnstein substitutes Maria for Frida, who attempts to seduce Anton until he becomes aware of the danger she poses. Maria saves herself from a burning by embracing a crucifix.
Oh, God.
Uncle Gustav at last listens to reason and joins Anton to lay siege to the castle. Weil dispatches Frida, but finds himself bested in a confrontation with the Count. Anton makes short work of Karnstein and reunites with Maria. The most morally ambiguous of the trilogy, Twins of Evil, benefits especially from its turnabout for Peter Cushing, from a malicious zealot to a self-sacrificing sort. Not so much a tragic heroic presence as a figure of simple determination who proves pragmatic in the clutch.
The devil has sent me. Twins of Evil.
Director Huff supplies dizzying momentum, helped along by Harry Robinson's evocative music and Dick Bush's precipitous camera work. Designer Don Menge strikes an impressive contrast between the witch hunter's austere environment and the Karnstein's baronial splendor, underscoring the script's study in contrasts as opposed to a mere struggle of good against evil.
I want to know what you think of Frida. Don't you think she's beautiful?
She's all right.
Julie!
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the ugliest of them all? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Devil woman.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most terrifying of them all?
The Countess Dracula.
Dovetailing with the Karnstein Trilogy is Peter Sasdy's self-contained Countess Dracula, which grants Ingrid Pitt an emphatic presence outside the plot device limitations of the Carmilla role. The basis lies in a noblewoman who was accused of murdering dozens of low-born women in search of perpetual youth. Jeremy Paul's screenplay finds Elizabeth Bathory enlisting her steward, Captain Dovey, Nigel Green, and a servant, Julie Zentes, Patience Collier, while pursuing a soldier, Lieutenant Imre Toth, Sandor Ilyes. A rejuvenated state may be taken literally. Elizabeth poses as her own daughter, Leslie Ann Down, while transformed, but she learns the hard way that only virgin blood will suit her purposes.
You'll go insane, or the bailiffs will take you and hang you.
If that should happen, then don't forget, you'll be there next to me.
A royal scribe, Maurice Denham, reveals the truth of this state of conditional immortality, only to run afoul of the captain. Reverting to a decrepit condition at an awkward moment, Elizabeth slays her intended husband.
Deus Pater, Deus Filius, Deus Spiritus Sanctus, Vos benedicat.
The gallows, or worse, awaits. Ingrid Pitt's immersion in an illusion of corruption makes Countess Dracula one of the bolder productions from Hammer's fading years. She dominates an unremarkable supporting cast, encouraged by director Sasdy's headlong sense of pacing. Harry Robertson's music echoes and embellishes upon his surging scores for the Karnstein pictures.
Countess Dracula. Countess Dracula.
In some, Hammer's concise foray into vampire erotica possesses a unity that appears more spontaneous than calculated. Whether Twins of Evil is meant to amplify upon its predecessors, The Vampire Lovers and Lust for a Vampire, is quite beside the point. Part number 3 takes place at a time before those of the first two titles, and the fatuous term prequel did not exist in 1971. Taken together with Countess Dracula, the pictures portray a phase that had found Hammer grasping at straws for a more lurid and audacious way to exploit an increasingly permissive climate. In the struggle, the studio achieved a new touchstone to its Gothic-style origins of the 1950s, and the combined results are a welcome reminder of the grandeur that Hammer had represented.